So welcome everyone. My name is Rachel Rader and I am a product manager at Appian.
Hi, my name is Arjun Saraswat and I'm also a product manager at Appian.
So we have one word we want you to remember today, easy. We want you to leave here knowing how easy it is to get it right with Appian. So that means it's easy for you to choose the right environment for your users. It's easy to build your solution in that environment. And it's easy for your users to use it to do their work. So easy, easy, easy. There will be a test. Arjun is doing it, not me. So wait till the end. So today, we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, Appian's UX strategy, what we have in mind when we're designing the product, these environments for you to use. Then we'll go through what each of these environments is in Appian, sites, embedded, and tempo, what each one is for, and what each one can do for you. Then we'll spend a little time talking about Appian on your mobile device, and then we'll spend some time talking about Appian SAIL. So you may have heard a little bit about it today, might still be curious, what is it? Why does it matter? Why is it important? And then we'll take all questions at the end. So if something occurs to you in the middle of the presentation, take a note. We'll have time at the end to get back to you. So first up, you heard Malcolm mention earlier today that Appian is one product. When you buy Appian, you get one thing. So it can be a little overwhelming. Appian can do a lot of things, but what exactly should it be doing for you? So that's what we keep in mind when we're building it, is that you need help choosing what that thing is. So we want the product to be flexible so that whatever it is you bought Appian to do, the product can do for you. So that means we want the product to be flexible so it can accommodate your needs instead of trying to box you in a strict template or a strict environment. We have choices, and you can choose what's right for you. And we also want Appian to be familiar. When your users use an Appian solution, it should be comfortable, it should be fun. They should log in and know what to do. They shouldn't be confused about, why is this page here? What does this button mean? No, none of that. So you log in, it just makes sense. You see your work, you know how to do it. And finally, we want Appian to be cross-platform so that no matter how you use it, no matter where you use it, on a web browser, on your mobile device, it looks right. It feels like it was meant to be used that way. So that when you design your solution, you just build it once and then it works everywhere. So with that, I'll turn it over to Arjun.
Right. Thank you, Rachel. But before I start, let's face it. We're living in a very dynamic and challenging world today. Today, users and consumers of products and services are constantly demanding more. They're not only demanding better user experience, they're demanding seamless digital experience. Now, that's a loaded term. What does it mean? It means they're looking for the same experience when they jump from one platform to the other. When they interact with your application, your brand, they're looking for the same experience. They want zero learning curve. And also, gone are the days where a single application was actually built for one persona or one type of user. Today, applications interact with not just one type of persona, but different type of personas. This all is really challenging and a scary bit too. But don't fear, Appian is here to help you. Appian with its SAIL not only provides you the building blocks necessary to build intuitive and powerful interfaces, but it provides you one really powerful thing, that you build once and it works on different platforms without any issue. Now that addresses the problem of seamless experience. But what about different personas, right? I had mentioned earlier, applications, they have different personas today interacting with them. So now there are a lot of different personas out there. I can't list all of them. So I've listed a few, just to illustrate my point and how Appian interfaces or Appian environments actually address needs of different personas. So I'll start with the first one, the knowledge worker. Knowledge worker is someone that is looking or wants to collaborate with his or her team a lot, is looking to share information with his or her team, the organization, and so on. They collectively achieve maximum efficiency by sharing information and by collaboration. Now for these users, we have an interface or an environment called Tempo. Tempo not only provides them the ability to share information, but also provides them the ability to utilize that information effectively. On the other hand, we have the focus user. These users are very goal-oriented. They don't want to collaborate that much. Collaboration might be a bit of a distraction for them. They want to do maximum things in the shortest span of time. So for these users, we have another interface, another environment called sites. Sites provides these users the capability to be focused, have that laser focus. Last but not the least is the external user. They can be anyone. They can be your partner, they can be your vendors, they can be people within your organization or outside your organization. These users have varied degree of interaction points or varied degree of use cases. For that, you need something extremely flexible. And that extremely flexible interface is embedded. Embedded addresses your flexibility issues or anything related to flexibility. Now, as you walk through this presentation, we're going to talk about each of these environments, each of these interfaces in detail. We're going to give you guidance on how and when to use each of these interfaces. I'm going to start with Sites. I'll be honest, Sites is very near and dear to my heart. I'm the product manager for Sites. And when we were building Sites, we had one goal in mind. And that one goal can be summarized in one word: easy. We wanted to make sure Sites are not only easy to build, they're easy to use. They're a joy to use for your users. And applications don't remain stagnant, right? Over time, they evolve. So we wanted to make sure Sites are easy to change to. This is a lot, right? So how have we accomplished this? We have accomplished this by leveraging things that already exist. We have leveraged Appian objects that are already there in your application. So if you have an application, for example, let's say vehicle management or home inspection, fairly simple applications. You can build a site for your focus users who are out in the field, who are leveraging mobile devices and so on, by using your existing application, by using records, actions, and task reports. So those focus users have that laser focus. Now, second part of my easy was an easy experience for your users. Now, every user has a mental model when they interact with an application. They learn over a period of time like how to interact with that application. We have made it possible with Sites that a designer can go in today and map it to your user's mental model. It's no longer restrictive. So they can leverage keywords and icons that your users are extremely familiar with. I'll go back to my example of vehicle management and home inspection. Certain keywords like inspection, vehicles, home, customer, your users are extremely familiar with. So your designer can go in and leverage those keywords. Each site tab can be built using those keywords. Now, we all are very visual people, right? We easily grasp and understand things when they're visual. So we have made it possible. We have exposed a library of 500 plus icons, which your site designer or designer can leverage for each site tab. Now, I've illustrated an example here with check. I was looking for a checkered flag. So it's so easy. I typed in check and pulled up everything related to check, right? It uses fuzzy search. So that makes it an easy experience for your designer. They can customize each tab with different icons. We didn't stop there. Now, each of your organizations or Appian customers have spent years, if not ages, building their brand. Your brand means something, not only to you, but to your customers, to your users. Your colors matter, they mean something. So we have made it possible. It's a few simple clicks, a designer can apply your brand colors. We have made it possible, you can change your logo. We have paid special attention to the smallest thing. You can change your favicon also. Now, I want to go back to the point that I made earlier about seamless digital experience. We paid special attention to that in Sites. When your designer goes in and applies those colors, and when a user interacts with your site, he or she gets the same experience when they're interacting with the site on web, and when they switch on and go to iOS. The same experience, no learning curve at all. Same experience on Android. They get the seamless experience. Now I've talked a lot about Sites. I just want to quickly summarize what we have released with our latest release. We've added records, making Sites more powerful. We've added branding. Actually, branding is customized to a user level. You can change colors at a user level, which makes and provides a very personalized experience. Now, before I move on, I wanted to give you a very neat trick, how to figure out when to use Sites. So think of it this way. If you know your users are going to interact with a small set of records, right? Really powerful in Appian. Sites is a good example for that. I will illustrate by using my vehicle management and home inspection application example. So if you know your users are going to interact with vehicle record and customer record, or home record and customer record, Sites is a very good example for them. They have a laser focus to accomplish their job. Sites is a very good example when you know your users are going to have a customer interaction face-to-face. Then they can have all the power of Appian within their hands. They can have all the details necessary for your users if they have to pull up that information using Sites. One last thing, and as Rachel mentioned, I have some homework. Not a homework, actually a challenge. I want you to go back when you wrap up Appian World to build a site. Actually, I hold the record of building a site in a minute. Let's see if you can beat that. But I guarantee you one thing. When you build a site, you'll realize it's probably the easiest thing to do in Appian Designer today. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about embedded. To refresh your memory, embedded is for external users. Right? Users can be partners or anybody else within your organization and outside. Now, embedded use case is when you're building something leveraging multiple applications or like a web application and you want to embed Appian within it. It can be a customer-facing website where you want to leverage power of Appian, any related actions, record views, and so on, and other interfaces, right? But it's not restricted to that. When you're trying to stitch together or leverage different systems that are contained in a web application and you want to use Appian, it's a good example for that internal application also. One thing, you can't actually look at the left image and tell me which part is Appian. It's really hard. You can't. You might actually look and you might be able to figure out, but it seamlessly blends in your web container, so nobody feels as if it's a different thing. One last thing before I move on. Embedded is extremely flexible and extremely powerful. But we all know, right? With extreme power comes great responsibility. In a spectrum of things where Sites is somewhere here on easy, right? I would say embedded is somewhere here. It does fall a little bit of responsibility on your developer to make sure, because there are different applications, your web container and embedded, they mix together well. So it has the power of extreme flexibility, but remember, extreme responsibility. And with that, I'd like to hand it back to Rachel, and she's going to talk about Tempo.
All right, thanks, Arjun. So, Tempo. Raise your hand if you're using Tempo right now. See, Arjun uses it. Arjun talked a pretty good game about Sites today, but he uses Tempo. So, Tempo is the environment you're using if you're using Appian today. In most cases, you're on Tempo. So, Tempo is the environment you go to when you do a lot of different things across applications with a lot of different records. So I'm a product manager. At Appian, we have our own Appian. We run Appian on Appian. And to do my job, I use Tempo. I use records. I use tasks, reports, actions. I use news. So this is what I see when I go to work. I see Tempo. So I see this navigation, news, tasks, records, reports, and actions. This environment is meant to make it easy for you to just put your records, put your process in an environment. Don't worry about the details of how to, what goes on the top bar. Appian just handles that for you. The environment is just there. When you make an object in Appian, it just shows up in Tempo. So these objects, Tempo is built using our 5 core objects. So the news, the tasks, the records, reports, and actions that you use in your applications to get whatever it is you're doing done. And the first one is news. So news is the big differentiator between Tempo and the other environments, Sites and Embedded. So news is where you go to see what's going on in your company. When I want to know what's up at Appian, I go to news. I use the news feed. And I'm not just a consumer of news. I create news entries too. I post. I give kudos on occasion. So Tempo looks like maybe it's just a social thing. Is it a distraction? Maybe, is this right for my users? Well, it's not merely a social construct. It's a feed of social and collaborative and process data being pushed to Tempo so that you can see not only what people are talking about, but what's going on with your processes, with your data. All of that can wind up in news. So it's your one stop to see what's going on here. Next up is tasks. So this one's pretty straightforward. We all know what a task is. It's your to-do list. It's where you go to see what do I have to do today, what tasks are waiting on me, what do I have to approve. So we have a task tab for that. So this is where you go to manage your own to-do list. So these can be tasks that have come through to you through a process or tasks that you've created for yourself. You can write your own, Rachel, go do this, and put it in tasks. And it's not just a way to see what your to-do list is. It's also a place where you can go to see a task report on what's going on with your team. Maybe you manage a team and you need to check in to see, how are people getting their tasks done, maybe somebody is overloaded, I need to help them out, or maybe somebody is not up to snuff. And a task report is a tool you can use to get more visibility into how your team is operating. The task tab is where you go to do that. The records. So Appian records. If you're using Appian and you're not using records, you should start using records. So Appian records, what are they? So one way people describe records is they're the nouns that you work with. What are your nouns? What are your things that you work on? So maybe if you're in healthcare, your records are patients or drugs or clinical trials. Or maybe if you're in retail or in manufacturing, you have a product or a facility. So those are records. Those are the things you work on. Maybe another example is if you're in financial services and you have a loan application or some sort of application for another financial service. These are your records, and they live in the records tab. So records is where you go to see what's going on with all of those things, all those records. So in the records tab, you can see a list of any given record, such as patients or clinical trials. You can see all of those records in one place. And you can see that as a feed, a record feed, or as a grid. So in 16.1, we introduced the record grid. If you aren't in 16.1, it's a really good reason to upgrade to 16.1, to use the record grid, to see a really nice, dense, informative view of your record, that most important thing in your application. And records is not only the place to go to see a list of these records, but also when one interests you, you can drill down and see what's going on that individual record dashboard. So the record dashboard is where you go to see details about, what is this record? What is the status of this clinical trial? What happened at the last facility inspection? A record dashboard is where you go to see that. And it's not just one dashboard. There's always more than one way of looking at a record. So you might want a summary view. There might be an interesting, the last facility inspection. Maybe I want to see all of the past inspections. You can put those in their own record dashboard. So each record can have multiple views. And with these multiple views comes an opportunity to create the right experience for any group who views this record. So you can control who sees each view. So maybe one group needs to see the inspections for that facility, but another group, it's not interesting to them or it's not important, so you don't have to show it to them. It's a customization. You can control that experience for your users so that when they go and look at that record, they see what's most valuable to them. So the Records tab is where all of this lives, and it's a really important part of the Tempo environment. Next up is reports. So reports, again, pretty straightforward. Report, a bunch of data, I want to check it out. So in Appian, you can design reports to show whatever it is you want to see that's interesting about your application. So one common thing to do is pull in data across many records, aggregate across interesting fields, and show them in the Reports tab. So you can design these reports in Appian, show them in the Reports tab, and also have drill down behavior so that when you see a report and something interests you, you can click on it and drill down to see the details about that data. And they live in the Reports tab. And finally, actions. So we've been talking a lot about data, but what about process? Where do you go to kick off that process? Well, you do that in the Actions tab. This is where you go to start new actions, to get things going in your system, to create that data or act on it. So a lot of you may be wondering, we've been talking a lot about sites, about embedded. Tempo's been around for a little while. Is it going anywhere? Well, no. Tempo is still a really important environment. It's not going anywhere. And we're enhancing it all the time. So in 16.2, there are Tempo enhancements. So if you're here for the last presentation, Adam flew through these, so I'll go through them again in case you missed something. So first up, there are now more record views available for you to configure on that Records tab. So we've increased the limit so that you can make a better experience as you bring in more users to a record. You can create views that are specific to those users so that everybody sees what's most interesting to them when they look at records. Next up, you can configure titles in the user profile. So this is something your administrator can allow in your environment or not, as you see fit. But one way to make Tempo the collaborative, engaging environment that it's meant to be is for users to have profiles so that when other people are collaborating with them or browsing the environment, they find out about their coworkers, and then they can collaborate more effectively and become more aware of what your culture is, what your company is, what's going on. So titles, one more addition to the engaging user profile. And finally, we made Tempo a little bit bigger. So a lot of you were making really big grids, really wide grids, big charts, and we made Tempo a little bit wider to accommodate them. So when you update to 16.2, your really dense interfaces are going to stretch out a bit and just look better. So you don't lift a finger, just upgrade, and everything's going to look better. So did I mention that all of this is just available on mobile? You don't have to lift a finger. So when you build something on Tempo, it is available on web, it is available on mobile. All you do is download the app, and there's your Tempo. You don't have to do anything. And that's true of Tempo in Sites as well. Arjun mentioned Sites is available on mobile. You don't have to do any extra work. You just build your app, build your environment, and there it is on web and mobile just the same. So moving on to SAIL. What is Appian SAIL? So SAIL is our cross-platform interface technology. It is the framework that powers the build once, deploy anywhere concept we've been talking about this Appian world. So that means you can quickly make powerful dynamic interfaces, your forms, your reports, your dashboards. You build them with SAIL, and they can do all the dynamic behavior you want, and they just work on web, on your mobile device. And when you make these interfaces, they look like they were meant to be on that device. That's SAIL doing all the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to do anything. You just say, here's my interface, now SAIL, you do the rest. And in addition to being that framework, SAIL is also a library of components so that when you build that interface, the components are intuitive, they're easy to use, they're familiar, they're consistent, and Appian takes care of that for you. All you say is, I want a grid, and then Appian makes the grid happen. So I mentioned there was a library of SAIL components. So here they are, there's a bunch. And as the product owner for the SAIL components, it is my favorite thing to make this list bigger. So if you have an idea for the next great SAIL component, let's talk afterwards. But these are the components we have right now. These are the components you use to make your forms, your reports, your dashboards. We're always adding to them. This list is always growing. And investing in the SAIL components is a really important thing that we can do to make your interfaces better, because when we add a new SAIL component, you can use it anywhere you use SAIL. So in Tempo, in Sites, and embedded on any of your interfaces, components, you can use them, they just work. Just a reminder, in case you've forgotten already, SAIL just works wherever you need to use it, on any of the major browsers and also on mobile. Your interface is going to look like it was meant to be there. So like I said, we're always investing in SAIL, always adding more components. That's true of 16.2. We have some new additions to the SAIL family. So first up, now when you're using a rich text field, you can put icons in it too. So this is a great way to make your rich text, your grids, your interfaces more engaging. You can add a little more color. You can convey more information by having that little icon in there. It's a lot of power in a little feature, and I can't wait to see what people are doing with it. Next up, we have the columns browser component. So this one is really interesting. It's a great way to have a visual representation of a data hierarchy. So you take a data hierarchy, something that's pretty complicated and hard to understand, and just plop it into our columns browser component, and then there's an easy way for your users to browse that complex data set without you having to do any heavy lifting, because we made the component for you. You just put in your data. Next up, we have another addition to our picker family. So we have a lot of pickers in the SAIL component library. We have pickers for documents, for users, for groups. Now we have one for records. So this one is really a good addition to the picker set, because records are so important. Why wouldn't you have a record picker? What took us so long? So now you can have a picker that people can use to browse and select the records that are in your system. So, been talking a lot about these SAIL components. There's dozens of them. It can be a little daunting if you're going out to build your first interface. But we have help for that. So when you want to use these SAIL components, when you want to make your interfaces great, we recommend that you go check out the Appian SAIL guide. So this is a free PDF download available on Appian Forum. It's on the front page. So download it. What you'll find inside is a lot of tips and tricks and recommendations about how to make your interfaces great. So designing interfaces might not be something that we do all the time, but when you do Appian, it's an opportunity to learn a new skill and do that. And we have some tips to help you get better at it. So there's some basic information about what the goals are of great UX, great design. And then there are also specific tips and tricks for some of the components. So for example, if you're making a grid is, it can be pretty dense. You can put a lot of information in and it can be hard to consume. It can be confusing for your users. But if you follow the tips and tricks in here, then you'll learn how to align the data, how to arrange it, how to make the columns look best with the data that's going to be in them, so that you, the designer, the interface designer, who knows best what this data is going to be, can make your grid look the best it can following our tips and tricks. So check out the Appian SAIL guide. All right, so we covered a lot of stuff. Go back through it real quick. So remember, when you get Appian, you get the whole product. You get everything. And you can do as much as you want with it. You can use all the features. You can use a couple of the environments. The environments, which we went through, sites, embedded, and tempo. You can use one of them. You can use all of them. Many of you are on tempo now, but I hope you'll explore the other two and see if any of them can be a great addition to your Appian solution. So I've been talking to a couple of you for the past few days, and one common thread that I'm hearing is that you're using tempo now for a lot of your internal users, but you have external users who might be better in a site, because all they do is log into Appian and do one or two things, use one or two records, a couple actions, and a site is really a good example of that's a good example of when you want to use a site, like Arjun said. One or two records, one or two actions, try a site, because then your users can log in, just see the objects that are familiar to them, and do their work. So next up, we talked a little about mobile. Remember, it just works. You don't have to lift a finger except to download the app. That's it. And then you have Appian on your mobile device. And finally, we went through Appian SAIL. So SAIL is very powerful. There are a lot of SAIL components, which I love talking about, so let's talk. And we're always adding to it to make your interfaces more powerful. So with that, Arjun, remind everybody of the homework.
Just a reminder, I gave you guys a challenge, so I was not joking. Go back, build a site. It's very easy. And as Rachel mentioned, style guide. I would say this, the style guide is like having a personal UX coach right next to you. It's going to help you a lot. And if you have any specific use cases, come and talk to us. And before I wrap up, how many of you noticed that Baxter is running on a site? It is.
All right, time to go check out Baxter and see his site.
And I'm going to camp right next to Baxter if any of you are interested in actually walking through a site, and I can show you how easy it is. With that, if you guys have any questions, the floor is open.
We'll take that as a compliment. Completely clear. All right, we have one. All right, good question. So in case anyone didn't hear, what else are we going to add to sites? Maybe news, maybe other objects.
Sure.
So news, so tempo is news right now. If you want news, use tempo. It's the environment meant for it. When you have news, when you have collaborators, you probably also have a lot of records, a lot of applications. So they go together right now. But Arjun, you can talk about what we might add to sites.
Sure, we're constantly looking at it, and even in Appian world, we have talked to a few customers who are interested in actually having limited collaboration in sites. So if you have any specific use case, that would help me and Rachel to make a case for it. So please let us know.
All right, we have one over there. So the question is offline actions in sites.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else? All right. Okay. Thank you.